Hey, what's going on, guys? So today we're talking about a budget Salamangreat deck profile. That's what a budget Salamangreat deck profile. Salamangreat, one of the best budget-friendly decks in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Right now. Now, obviously, one of the biggest issues is that big Cyber's boss monster, Access Code Talker. This deck is not running Access Code Talker. Stalio's back. This deck can still do a lot of great things. Now, this deck is a little bit on the rogue side of things. So when you're running a rogue deck, a good rule of thumb is you need your deck to either go fast enough to compete with the meta or slow the meta down enough to where you can compete with it. This deck actually kind of does both. It leans a little bit more towards slowing down. But without further ado, let's jump into it. Starting with one copy of Salamangreat Gazelle. That should be fairly obvious. And then we're only running 2 copies of Salamangreat Foxy and 2 copies of Salamangreat Spinny. See a lot of lists that are running 3. Listen, I've tried 3 of this, especially because, like, you get this one, turn into Balinks, and if you have another one of these copies, they synergize actually with each other. But this deck just doesn't really need to, run as many Salamangreat cards as possible so it can gain the consistency. There's a lot of different cards that help with consistency, whether it's Flame Buffalo, or it's Sign It Mining, or it's Salamangreat Gazelle, Salamangreat Circle. There's a lot of different things that work super duper well to where you don't need to run Foxy and Spinny at 3. And other than Gazelle, these are the only 2 Salamangreat monsters, in my opinion, that are worth even trying, even testing at 3. I am running 1 copy of Foul, 1 copy of Falco, 1 copy of Jaguar. Now, obviously, Falco and Foul are definitely one-ofs. I think that's pretty obvious. Foul is actually a pretty fun card that helps with level 4, rank 4 spam, different things like that. Jaguar is an interesting card at 2, but this card, similar to Spinny, similar to Foxy, I just think 1 is the appropriate amount. I really didn't try to run too many Salamangreat cards, at least monsters, just specifically because we're trying to use the rest of our deck to counter the meta. Next, should be fairly obvious, 3 copies of Parallel Exceed, 3 copies of Flame Buffalo. So this is a staple in any link spam deck, and Salamangreat are super great at that. And this is easily the best starter card in your deck. It's going to help you dump a Foxy, a Spinny, a Jack, a Foul, heck, even a Gazelle. Even sending Gazelle to the graveyard is not that bad. And the thing is, too, is if you draw in multiples, you can send it. You can send Parallel Exceed off of it. There's so many different things you can do with the discard, and it also helps you just shuffle through the right cards, help you get to where you need to get to. So 3 Flame Buffalo, 3 Parallel Exceed, and then 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, and 3 copies of Phantasme. I'm running the gold Phantasme because it's cheaper. Phantasme, honestly, will probably get shifted out for maybe, a token collector or something like that. Obviously, that's for Sword Soul. Tri-Brigade is just still the best deck in the room right now, and so that's why Phantasme is here. Phantasme is just really good against Tri-Brigade. Going second, you play this card, and maybe it can draw you into your Ash, but even more importantly, it'll get you to a hand that can break that Tri-Brigade board through a Revolt. But Ash Blossom and Joyous Springs, unfortunately, all versions of this card are about $16 to $20. If you're going to run Salamangreat, you have to run Ash Blossom, and the reason for that is the interaction that this card has with Sunlight Wolf. And so what that does, it takes this deck, this deck without Ash is probably a tier 4 to tier 5 strategy. This deck with 3 copies of Ash, all of a sudden, is like a tier 2.5, tier 3 strategy, right? So you got to run 3 Ash. I know it's a little bit more expensive for a budget deck, but it's such a great card. And the thing is, you're going to run Ash in all your other decks as well, right? It's just an amazing card overall. For the spells, 3 copies of Will of the Salamangreat, 1 copy of Salamangreat Sanctuary, 1 copy of Salamangreat Circle. This card's at 1, obviously, or else we run it at more. This card's super searchable, so that's why we run it at 1. This card at 3 is a ratio I really, really like. I play tested at 2. You really just want to see it as often as possible. Now, the thing with Will of the Salamangreat, it is a bit clunky when you're playing Solitaire. Okay, what do I mean by that? When you're by yourself or when you don't bump into any hand traps, it is a bit clunky when you draw it because you don't really need it. It's an unnecessary extender. But what it does, it plays through Nibiru. It plays through Ash Blossom. It plays through Valor. Like, your extender through hand traps, through disruptions, is Will of the Salamangreat. That's why I run it at 3, because even though we'd like to, we do bump into a lot of hand traps, and those aren't fun. 3 copies of Sign It Mining. Should be fairly self-explanatory. It's a Cypress deck. 1 Foolish, 1 Upstart, 1 Called By, 1 Monster Reborn. And that's actually it for the spells. You're probably wondering why there's no Extravagance, no Desires. So other than Desires, most of the Draw 2 cards are either bad, banned, or just too expensive, right? So why not run Desires? There's too many valuable one-ofs in here, whether it's Circle, or it's Sanctuary, or it's Gazelle. I play tested Desires a lot. It really just doesn't fit. And these 4 actually do work super duper well. I mean, these 3 should be obvious, 39 card deck, stops all hand traps, another extender. And Foolish is pretty solid as well. Get your Spinny in the grave, get your access to your Gazelle, a lot of different things like that. And then for the traps, 2 Roar, 2 Rage, 1 Imperial Order. See a lot of people not main decking Imperial Order in Salamangreat because of the Will of Salamangreat, because of the Salamangreat Sanctuary. That's just super incorrect. This card by itself wins duels, just by itself. And if you can get a free win at a locals or at a regional event or, on Dueling Book, wherever, you're going to take it as many times as you can get. And that's why Imperial Order is so great. And these cards are really great because you want to, your best board in most cases is a Sunlight Wolf and these 2 cards. So if you can open one, you don't have to worry about digging for that and you can go dig for the other one. But that's actually it for the main deck. 40 card main deck. For the extra deck in the Xyz monsters, 1 Mirage Stalio. Mirage Stalio made the deck completely 13 times better. It's an insane card. But timing it because of the restriction effect, as well as because of what monsters you use, is very, very important. Timing it correctly is very important. 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Maguska. These are just the best 2 rank 4 stun monsters. You could probably run the, some other cards, right? But these are also very budget friendly as well, right? For the Link monsters, 1 Borrelsword Dragon, 1 Apollousa, the Goddess Bow, 1 Splash Mage, right? So these 3 right here are going to be, this is obviously your OTK, without using access code. This is just, Apollousa's Apollousa. And Splash Mage is a very strong extender. I don't usually run into it too often where I need it, but it's really, for climbing up into some of your other Salamangreat monsters later on in the duel. There is a lot of interactions that you can still use with Splash Mage even without Access Code Talker. But Apollousa and Borrelsword is really, really strong. For the Salamangreat Link monsters, only 1 Pyro Phoenix and 1 Heat Leo. Don't really see the necessity to run them at multiples. I do want to say both these monsters' second effect, if they're used as themselves as link material, is pretty solid. But I didn't really find a whole lot of room. I am running 3 Sunlight Wolf and 2 Baylinks. Now the second Baylinks could essentially be, because we're only running 1 Sanctuary, the second Baylinks could honestly be an Almirage. The reason it's not is because, like I said, Baylinks is a little more budget, and that's what we're trying to lean towards, is the budget. And essentially, they don't really do anything. Almirage doesn't do anything crazy different than Baylinks on the field, especially considering what Baylinks' graveyard effect does, especially if you get access to the second one. 3 Sunlight Wolf does come up very, very often, so you're definitely going to want to run that. And the final 2 cards in the extra deck are actually going to be Proxy F Magician and Salamangreat Violet Chimera. So for those who don't know what these cards do, Proxy F Magician, it's only 2 effects monsters, and it says during your main phase, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck using materials on the field as fusion material for fusion monsters. Choose a summon to a card to a zone this card points to. You can special summon a monster with 1,000 or less attack from your hand. There aren't a whole lot of monsters that fit that bill, actually. You'd think there would be more. There's actually not. It's actually only Spinny and Foxy, but those are still 2 strong random monsters that come up. But the effect is not what matters. The effect is not actually what matters at all. So there's a card, Contacting the Sea, I believe what it's called, and as well as Nibiru. They are huge disruptors to this deck. And I was noticing when I looked at my extra deck, I was like, I don't have a card I can summon if my opponent gives me a Contacting the Sea. So Proxy F Magician's in there as a way to summon this, right? I think if I had an Access Code Talker, I'd probably just cut this card. This card's interesting. It's got a really long effect, so I'm not going to read it. You don't usually go into it too often. It takes a Salamangreat and a Link monster, but it does have a way of ending games in and of itself, but usually I'm just using Proxy F Magician because it's a Fire Cyberse Link monster. So you can use it to make any Salamangreat monster, and you can also link summon it without using the Salamangreat card. So that's it for the deck profile. Let me know what you guys think. Let me know in those comments down below what deck you would like me to see do a deck profile next. Let me know what you guys are running in your Salamangreat deck. Make sure you click that like button and that subscribe button to show your support for the channel. And most importantly of all, obviously, have a good day.